Doom, The Dark Ages. I listened to the soundtrack, I did a reaction to it, and we watched some of the behind the scenes videos and things like that. And you all seemed to like it. I got some positive feedback on that. A lot of people talking about the soundtrack one way or the other, but a lot of appreciators of the soundtrack in the comments. And I was pointed out some songs that you all thought I should listen to that I didn't get to in my first reaction. So here we are again, about to listen to some more songs from the Doom The Dark Ages soundtrack. I have 4 songs pulled up, and for one of the songs, I also have a short behind the scenes video that we will watch. So I got a couple comments I tried to pick from the comments that I got there. Some of them were songs that came up a couple of times, or some that only one person requested, but I felt like I got a pretty good rotation here, so let's go ahead and get into it. By the way, if you're into gaming and you want to see a playthrough of this game on my gaming channel, let me know. If there's interest in doing that, I will try to make some time to play through The Dark Ages. I stream on Twitch as well as on YouTube at Ad Noctem Gaming, so I'll go ahead and I'll leave a link to that if anybody wants to jump in, and let me know if you'd like to see that playthrough. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. The first one that I heard a couple of times come up was Battle on the Blackened Tide. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get right into this. Now, as usual, I may do some pausing, I may do some fast forwarding, rewinding, just comment on what I think about the music, all of the things that I think make a reaction, and, you know, try to uphold that spirit of using the copyright exemptions for intended purposes. So let's go ahead and get into it. Battle on the Blackened Tide. There's a lot happening in the low frequency here. Low-pitched percussion, you've got a low synth. Some chants going on. This one feels very video gamey. It sounds like it comes from a video game. Ooh, love the evolving filter on that bass element. That is a lot of noise, and I say this in a way that a lot of musical genres do use noise as an effect, but there was so much going on there that a lot of it blended together. It was very large, kind of distorted. I was pretty sure I heard strings, but also, you know, some sort of distorted electrical instrument. Let's go back, and it's these loud pulses of noise. And then they pull it, but it's not a hard stop. The noise tails off. And then in one of the times, you can hear the brass start stepping down a scale. There's the brass. Yeah, there's so much noise in there. There's even a little bit of what sounds like brown noise, which is a lower pitched white noise. Definitely an intentional effect, I am sure, but that's definitely hitting with full emphasis on those blasts. Good bit of breathing room in there. So obviously there's chants in there, which I'm pretty sure those were an element. They had like a chant, almost death metal chorus thing going on in the prior Doom soundtrack. So it sounds like they're doing something similar here, and they're building up to what I feel like is teasing a climax here. I'm not sure. Um, I can guess from the way that the most replayed peak goes up that this is a lot of build up and tension, and then we're about to get some catharsis here, which is where it sounds like the music is going also. All right, let's hear where it goes. Okay, I hear it. I love that. Okay, let's see if they try to one-up that. Yeah, they do. Wow. Okay, let's listen to that last part again. And here it's gonna help if you're wearing headphones. Always the best for listening to music in detail. But the guitar, first of all, what to say about the guitar other than outrageously heavy, very low tuned, probably in like low bass territory as far as octave. Um, Lots of chromatics and tension and things like that. Just super heavy. Hits really good after that buildup of several minutes. What I found interesting was when they bring it back around in this final part here, it's a little genty. There's a lot of ghost notes. There's a lot of like muted percussive swipes where It sounds like they're muting the strings and kind of picking it. It makes kind of a thumpy, scratchy kind of sound. And just that combined with the low tuning and the gain and the compression on it and everything, it's very much, well, gent to me is what it says. Obviously, this soundtrack has influences in metal all throughout the years, just like last time we were listening and we heard, a little Black Sabbath or Slayer or something like that. There's definitely the metalcore elements and then the newer super heavy detuned metal. So let's hear that, and I want to say it's mostly in the right ear. Just listen for the intricacies in the picking pattern of the guitar. Big notes here. Yeah, when it comes back around this next time. It's starting to ramp up. It's maintaining that driving pulse with the muted notes. Very solid. I would love to know how that is used in the context of the game. I'm assuming it's done a little bit procedurally where you're in a level and you're hearing the first part kind of on a loop when things are a little lower stakes, and then you're going to get a build perhaps to the big, I don't know if it's a boss or if it's a big like wave survival of enemies or something like that. That's how I would assume this song would be used in that context. So let's check out Behind the Music of Doom, The Dark Ages Battle on the Blackened Tide. So this is the song we just listened to.
I'm going to take you inside one of the tracks from Doom, The Dark Ages. This is Battle on the Blackened Tide.
Oh, that's super cool. I love this. The brain, at least my brain and a lot of our brains, are wired very much visually. And sometimes we hear with our eyes. Now, this can be misleading. You can think something sounds a certain way because it looks so metal or whatever. But in this case, I find a lot of times you will hear musical intricacies stand out that you weren't aware of after seeing visual evidence of them. That can be watching a guitar player play a line that you've never heard in the song, and then suddenly it sticks out to you, or even an instrument that you didn't realize was there or couldn't hear in the mix. Now, of course, they've got some of this soloed and pushed up, so it's going to resonate more. But I just find it interesting the way you can take in information from multiple media, and it influences the way you hear the song. So modular synth. A little bit of vocals. Spectral morphed cello is super cool. Okay, remember I was talking about how much noise there was? So just replaying that part, they had what they called mangled strings. They had 808s, which is like a super fat reverby kind of kick. They had a plugin, I assume it was a plugin or maybe a pedal or a rack unit of some kind called a make noise. And then nasty fuzz guitar. So again, they're just layering noise on noise and stacking it. Like I said, an intentional effect. And there's the vocal layer, the sub chant. Big fucking drums. Let's hear it. There it is. See, long note lengths. Lots of sustain. Are they gonna cut to the guitar? I was hoping we'd get to see a little more of that guitar technique. But you can hear a little bit of it when the guitar first comes in. It's just holding notes. And then in the latter half, well, really the last time the riff loops back around, it becomes much more choppy and percussive and segmented. That looked like Fortin Nameless Suite X. So this is Neural DSP. For anybody who doesn't play music, it's basically an amp and speaker cabinet and effect modeler. And the Fortin Nameless Suite, I have this one, is just known for sounding super tight and aggressive and heavy. So I'm sure using in the studio, like a lot of musicians are now, it's probably a blend of actual amplifiers and pedals and things like this, physical units, and the amp modeling. And you have bands doing this very heavy, low-tuned, yet clean sound entirely off of DSPs. Like I want to say Loathe is one of them. I think Spirit Box uses them pretty extensively. They've just... You know, I remember like back 2012, before I stopped playing for a long time, Fractal Axe Effects was the thing. That was a big like amp modeler, and then, you know, come back 5-10 years later, that used to be a very boutique sort of thing. Axe Effects and what's the other one? Kemper, I think. And then all of a sudden, you know, now we have DSPs that you can get on sale for like $60 when they do their birthday sale, and just make these massive sounds with just your guitar and an audio interface. Okay, so that was Battle on the Blackened Tide. Let's go ahead and check out What Lies Below. A bit more up-tempo. Oh, yeah. That groove. This sounds fun as hell to play on guitar. Okay, remember what I was saying in the last song about the ghost notes and the rhythmic thumps? That is absolutely, I mean, that's the core of the riff right here. And it's accenting several of the important hits on the drums. You can just hear it speak. And it's actually, at least this part here where it comes back into a break with just the guitar, it doesn't sound like crazy high gain. It sounds compressed and obviously fresh strings and low, thick, heavy strings. But it's a very interesting sound, definitely on the more modern side of what's popular today. That guitar tone is a monster. Oh, love that. Little detail I noticed, in between the chugs, they're hitting a dissonant chord that sounds like a minor second. Some musical notes are in intervals, and the minor second is one note above the root note. So if you have a C, the minor second would be a C sharp. So they're not notes that are typically played next to each other because they clash hard. They're very dissonant. It sounds like, my ear's not perfect, but it sounds like that's what they're hitting here. And it's something that's common in metal, certain types of metal, to hit a low pedal chug and then ring out those two dissonant notes. I've heard some people call it like an elephant chord, or I don't know if there's an official name for it, but it just adds a spicy certain amount of tension to what's going on here. Listen to that high dissonance in between the chugs right here. If that's not a minor second, it could be a tritone, a diminished fifth. It's something like that that's super dissonant, which would be quite fitting because the tritone is known as the devil in music. And so the legend goes, there was quite the religious fervor against its use in music because the sound was thought to contain the devil. So, either way, not that that's anything new. I mean, all the way back to Black Sabbath opening the songs with big old tritones ringing out those notes. But again, just honoring all the metal heritage throughout the years. This one's got an interesting thing where the synth is kind of like chirpy and vibey and a little upbeat. It's definitely a thrasher of a song, but it's not it's not all as gloomy. Oh. way to pick the pace back up. So that song is kind of the definition of rip and tear until it is done, because it just rips and tears. And then even when it's tailing off and you think that it's going to be done, oh, it's back again for more ripping and tearing. It does get to be a little so much that if you were listening to a lot of this, I feel like your ear would get accustomed to it and a little fatigued, and then you would need a break. I know that's heresy for metal enjoyers, but I do feel like it is so hardcore, so fast forward the whole time, or I guess I should say full intensity the whole time, that it does start to wear on the ear a little bit, but absolutely killer riffs. And let's check out Blood Spill. Very cinematic. Killer guitar tones the entire time. Another one that just sounds so fun to play. It's almost a post-hardcore breakdown. And now a little metalcore. But the core of this one, I think, is just the ass-beating groove. Oh, okay. A little bit of a variation on the riff. Ooh, nice harmonies, playing two guitars a couple notes apart. Ooh, very cool. What is that? Kind of sounds like an oud. I think that's how you pronounce that. was an interesting change in tonality. I want to find that change. There was a chord that was very kind of major flavored, and it was a change in the feel of the song. It was something from being just intense and dark to a little triumphant. It sounded to me like gaining the upper hand in battle, like you've been locked in battle and it's been back and forth, and then you're starting to break the wall and advance on the enemy. It also sounded like something I would hear in like Death Clock, but heavier. See if I can find that again. That chord right there. And then it steps down to a harsher, more mellow sound. See, kind of uplifting, powerful, charging sound. And the strings doing their thing, of course. It's funny because that is half where I expected the song to end. They introduce a real change of feel, but then they go back to the main motif. So that must have been what they wanted to emphasize at the end there. But had they chosen to end it here, I think it would have been an interesting movement in the final part of the piece. So that's Blood Spill. We've got one more of these today, and it's Into the Void. Interesting instrumentation so far. Sounds like a ticking clock. Oh, super heavy. That swell sounds like a siren of some kind. Nice reverb on those drums. Sweeping filter on the synth. That build-up was super cool. So, a similar thing to what I was saying in the previous song. You've got these chugs, and then in between they're doing rakes of like harmonics and just these ringing notes, some of them quite dissonant and clashing. What was interesting on that build-up was you hear, for instance, the bass doing a bit of a crescendo. The drums are building up rhythmically where they are. Now, I don't know how this song is counted. I don't know if it's like a really fast 4/4, or, if it's an eighth count or whatever. But just say, for example, the drums are mostly accenting quarter notes, and then a measure goes by and they're accenting eighth notes, and then they're building up to 16th, and then at the end, basically doing a full fill, and you just have this rumbling, moving sound on the drums building up to where that drop hits. And then again, kind of a post-hardcore sort of sound with the breakdown with the low chug open notes. Let's hear that again. Bum, 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 See, the drums intensify in complexity there. I wonder if those high-pitched ringing, if they're striking up near the string tree above the nut, above the fretboard. One more time. Very nice doubling going on there with two distinct voices. What's interesting that I noticed at a couple points throughout this song, we'll just back up to the last point where I heard it. The bass is a little more driving and prominent here in some of the other songs, and it leads me to think about, the guitar in many cases in this soundtrack could be as low or lower than a typical bass. But what's interesting is they haven't left out the bass; they're still including the bass. And what I think I'm hearing is that the bass and the guitar are actually on the same octave. They're actually playing the same notes. And this is interesting because despite being the same note, you get a very different timbre, you get a different foundation, different harmonics. And so by playing the same note across the two different instruments, you're still filling two different slots in the frequency response for that nice round solid tone without being muddy. Sometimes if you try to get the bass frequencies from the guitar, especially a distorted guitar, it just ends up like a wall of muddy sound that's very unclear. There's no articulation to it. So you can get those, particularly those low mids from the bass and kind of cut them out of the guitar a little bit and thicken up the same note being played across two voices. Listen to it here. Again, this is where it helps to have headphones on. When it comes back in, they come back together, I believe, on the same octave. That's my guess anyway. I think if the bass were playing an octave below that, it would just be notable how low that tone would be. But yeah, another great song. So I think I've done as much as I can do in listening to the soundtrack and saying the soundtrack stands on its own as being solid. The real question is, how does it fit into the game? So like I said, if you want to see me play through this, I'll see if I can schedule it in if there is some interest. In the meantime, feel free to check out some of the other reactions on the channel. They're not all metal. Some of it is video game stuff, metal, prog. If you've got other things for me to check out, especially if it's a genre or performance that you think I might find surprising or something like that, something underappreciated or something that I might not have heard of, definitely leave your recommendations below. I can't say I'll get to all or even most of them, depending on how many responses I get, but I do check comments, as I hope I've demonstrated with this one, listening to some of the requested ones in a previous. So if you caught the other and you were wishing for me to hear some of these songs, I hope I did a good job. Feel free to let me know your thoughts, but until we catch you again, please take care of yourselves.